in the fourth quarter of 2022. The increase represented 9.07% from 141.9 million in the fourth quarter of 2021. Now, the National Bureau of Statistics disclosed these last week in its latest data. The report also said the number of active voice subscribers in fourth quarter of 2022 rose to 222.5 million from the 195.4 million reported in the fourth quarter of 2021. Now, according to the agency, this indicates a growth rate of 13.87%. But on quarter-on-quarter basis, voice subscribers grew by 4.89%, according to the report. Now, what are the benefits of these to Africa's Commercial Nerve Center? So let's get talking now. We have our guest on the show, who of course will be joining us. Ido Akinde is ICT expert and startup coach. He joins us virtually now. And also we'll be having Wale Amin, who will also be joining us, exclusive Africa publisher, will also be joining us to look at this as well. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time. Hello, Ido, can you hear me?
Thank you, Frank. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Okay. Give us your assessment of how the country has fared in terms of internet penetration, or what some people prefer to say broadband penetration.
Okay. Very, very tricky question, especially around sometimes the way the headline is articulated. So, as you know, well, as everybody who lives in Nigeria knows, the average Nigerian has more than one subscribed mobile number. Okay? So, it is a great positive to read a headline that says the number of internet subscriptions, right, across all the internet providers that have the NCC license to issue SIM cards. When you count the number of SIM cards, is around 180 million. And the number of voice connections, the number of voice subscriptions, voice SIMs is around 222 million. Those are great numbers, right? But the interpretation is that it does not mean there are 222 million people with 222 million SIM cards. As we know, the population of Nigeria is probably not even up to 222 million, right? What it actually means is that there is a number of Nigerians, we don't have that number as we speak, there is a number of Nigerians, obviously less than 200 million, right? Who together taken in aggregate own 222 million lines or SIM cards or subscriptions, right? So if you think of it from that interpretation or from that perspective, the data or the headline comes alive. So perhaps it's a 70% penetration, perhaps it's a 60-65% penetration, but to say that it's 100% penetration is a bit colorful and maybe ambitious.
But would you say this penetration is tangible with what you've just explained? And so, yes, so it is not about the population now, but of course the data. I mean, 1 or 2 persons can subscribe for maybe 4 or 5 SIM cards, as the case may be. So talk to us about that.
Okay. Thank you very much. I usually like to answer that question using the end user's perspective. Okay, so if you think about it, at the end of the day, whatever the numbers are saying, what really matters is the experience of the end user, you and I, right? So if you think about it, what actually drives people to own or buy more than one SIM card, more than one SIM, right, line, right, connection, right, is an attempt on their own side to increase the probability of connectivity at any given point in time. So people have analyzed that, oh, look at it. There usually is a situation where the network I'm currently subscribed to is down when I need to be online. Oh, that's because I'm tied to network A. What if I bought parallel data lines, right? Parallel modem subscriptions, right? From network A, network B, network C. So you discover that every Nigerian that has a same line for data, network A data, network B data, network C data. So that itself is a result of the uptime, right? Right. You know, in technical terms, we call it uptime, but the availability, right? And so that's like a surface analysis. If you go deep, you ask yourself, if I want to, so I always like to use this example. A few years ago, maybe 5 years ago, if you had a friend and you went to visit them at home and they wanted to entertain you with movies, most likely they would bring out, a few years ago, they would bring out a hard drive, right? Where they had downloaded a lot of movies and they would plug that hard drive into their TV and then they would start to scroll and say, which one? Do you want this one or that one? This one or that one? The same thing with music. We had a lot of people who had all sorts of music libraries on their MP3 flash drives, on their bigger hard drives, blah, blah, blah. Today, everybody streams movies. You go to your Netflix, you go to your what's the other one? Showmax. You go to all these other music streaming services, and that tells you that we are not where we were, but there's still some work to do. Thank you very much.
I want us to explore the opportunity and the market's potential in this conversation. I mean, 154.8 million internet users or subscribers, as the case may be, is quite huge in the largest economy in Africa. We have the population, we have the number. First, it's how can we quantify these in terms of growth for the Nigeria broadband penetration? That's one. Two, how significantly do you think this subscription will impact on the bottom line of the operators, the GSM operators in Nigeria?
So at the end of it, so let me start from the last question, right? Impacting the bottom line. At the end of the day, each of these telcos, each of these service providers makes money when someone uses their own particular SIM. So take, for instance, as I sit right now, hypothetically, I could have three SIMs in front of me, 3 data lines on 3 parallel networks, hypothetically. The way it pays any of the networks that I've purchased is for them to fight for my attention and to be my preferred network of choice whenever I want to access the internet. So how do they do that? It's in their interest to ensure that their network is always, almost always up. There's something called uptime. That's a technical conversation. But the higher the degree of user confidence in their uptime, right, or availability, then the more money that they will make, because people will choose them despite the fact that they have multiple options, right, as backups. That's number one. Number two is the aggregate or the derivative digital economy.
Right.
The pandemic proved to all of us, right? And I remember, before the pandemic, people like myself, we used to go around trying to convince organizations adopt remote working at least 2 to 5 days in the week. Let your staff work from home. But most business owners had this command and control culture. They don't want people to. They want to be supervising people, micromanaging people. But the pandemic proved to everybody that remote working can work. Virtual working can work. Virtual meetings. People have closed deals. Even international deals, international meetings via virtual, just as the pandemic made all of us comfortable with network things. What that has done is that subconsciously, each of us as Nigerians has gotten somehow a little bit more used to the digital ways of working. So the benefit for us and for the businesses, for us as a company, and specifically for the telco businesses, is that there is now this thing called a digital economy, right? So whomever can find a way to extend their business into the digital sphere now has the opportunity and has a captive audience if they go that way. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, yes. I was going to ask you, I mean, the factors responsible for this growth. I mean, you've answered that partly. This is despite the complaint about low internet, bandwidth by subscribers. But going forward, what do you think we need to address? Because every now and then, you talk about, of course, digital economy. That's a whole lot of opportunity or a big market on its own that perhaps we've not really tapped into that. So what are the things you think we need to address going forward to address the low bandwidth? I mean, the first part of the show, we had internet issue. We couldn't connect. There was, absolutely distortion in the flow of conversation because of poor internet signal. And so what are the things we need to address? Because this is huge opportunity. You've just talked about how, what a particular GSM operator can make money off subscription.
Can you hear me? It looks like...
Yes, can you hear me?
Just as you were talking about it.
Well,
all right.
Can you hear me now? Did you get the question?
Well, not quite. Just as you were talking about earlier in the show, I got cut off. So
yes, I was saying that we had internet issue, connectivity issue in the course of the first part of the conversation before we came to this point. So I was asking you that this growth, of course, there's something responsible for this growth. Amidst complaint about low internet bandwidth by subscribers as well. So going forward, in terms of efficiency of services, what are the things that we need to address? Especially, what are the things you think we need to put in place to have efficient, internet, operations in Nigeria?
Okay. I'll take a line, quote unquote, or a page, quote unquote, out of the playbook of the revered Mrs. Funke Okweke, former founder, former MD of Main One. So, in summary, in a nutshell, we need to increase capacity, right? So, I hinted at something earlier, and it's called uptime or availability. In technical terms, if we're to dive into that, you measure that by the number of seconds or milliseconds of outage per given period. So, for instance, and I'm trying to be, as non-technical as possible. For instance, if you were to, if any of the network providers were to give you a detailed service level, the provision of internet services, right? They would promise you and say, we are promising you 3 nines or 5 nines or 7 nines. The degree of that, 3 nines means 99.9% uptime, 5 nines means 99.999% uptime, and so on and so forth, right? What they are saying is that at 5 nines, they are saying that in any 30-day cycle, which is a month, they are guaranteeing you that their network will not be down for more than maybe 0.5 or maybe 3 seconds, something like that, 3 seconds in a 30-day cycle. Now, this is how service providers in mature advanced economies measure themselves and promise service delivery to the consumers. So that is the ultimate benchmark. The ultimate benchmark at the end of the day is what the user experiences. You notice that our network providers haven't started talking much or boasting about this because they themselves, and this is the second point. So the first point is uptime and availability. The next point is they themselves need further investment and capacity. And this is what I was saying about Mrs. Funke Okweke's playbook. There is a right now, so if you think about internet service delivery, you can think about it like the road network. In Nigeria, there are the major roads, the expressways, Lagos Ibadan, Abuja Kaduna, Lagos Benin, right? And so on and so forth. Major expressways. Then there are certain other smaller roads that feed off those major expressways, and then there are smaller roads that feed off those smaller roads, and then so on and so forth until you get to the street on which your house is situated. Internet provision is exactly like that. Now, our internet providers are like those big people that are the big expressways. They need they need a lot more investments, focused investments in the people that will take that big chunk of bandwidth that is being provided and efficiently route it to you and I in our houses.
Okay.
So that's, thank you.
Okay. I wanted to, yes, okay. Point taken. How competitive do you think the market, the future market is, given the likes of Starlink getting into the Nigerian space? So because we have the likes of Starlink coming in as an investor in the Nigerian space as well. So how competitive do you think the future will be? And do you think the GSM operators now can cope with the competition that is ahead?
Okay. I have received the news of Starlink with mixed feelings, and I'll explain why. The innovation is good. Competition and challenges or alternative service provision are always good for the consumers. It's good for us. Okay. However, can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead, please.
Network.
Please go ahead. I can hear you.
Experiencing what we're talking about.
Yes, go ahead. I can hear you. Of course, but I can hear you from here. Go ahead.
Okay.
Please.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Okay.
Yeah. So back to the point. The introduction of alternatives is good, and it will force the incumbents, right, the existing players, to sit up. However, and this is the work that I do as a startup coach, it's one thing to do what is called a technology innovation. And this is the weakness that most smart technologists make. It's one thing to introduce a new technology innovation to a market. It's another thing for non-techie users who don't have that kind of techie brain to adopt that technology. And usually, in addition to the technology innovation, you need two other types of innovation that translates your technology innovation to something that users can use every day. You need usually a UX or user experience innovation and a business model innovation. I mentioned this today because in the particular case of Starlink, I am aware that the upfront cost for Starlink is about almost 500,000, about 400 and something thousand naira. That automatically is a barrier to adoption for a lot of Nigerians. And you and I that live here know how that's kind of a high price barrier can prevent a lot of people from. So I'm watching and I'm curious to see how Starlink responds to an understanding of the cultural factors of the average Nigerian consumer. Are they going to find some kind of buy now, pay later, installmental, or lower cost variant of that service that is more available to the masses? So that's business model innovation in addition to technology innovation.
Well, I mean, it's interesting to know that. Well, it's going to be a competitive market in the future. Thank you so much. I just want to appreciate your time because our time is far spent now. Ido Akinde is ICT expert and startup coach. We appreciate you for coming on board.
Thank you very much, Frank.
Yeah.
Okay.
You've been watching Business Breakfast, broadcasting live from our Studio 7 Lagos. We'll take a break now, and after the break, we head to the global oil market as we'll see the oil futures rising more than 1% on Monday on optimism that holiday travel in China will increase fuel demand and the world's second biggest economy. We'll bring you details after this time out. Please stay with us.